Hey, before we get started this episode, I just wanted to say we encountered a few difficulties with our recording settings, so the sound quality is not up to our usual standards. Apologies for that, but I think it's still a good listen, and we'll have it sorted for the next one. Thanks. Welcome to What the Heck's, your source for Warhammer Underworlds and under 30 glory that is scored for holding objectives in enemy territory. I'm your co-host Davey, and with me as always is my noble but secretly bloodthirsty co-host Phil. How are you doing, Phil?
Hey, I'm doing all right.
All right.
Secretly bloodthirsty, huh?
Or
Think by
maybe
the
not
amount
secretly, I don't know.
Maybe. I think the amount of corn that I've played in my days probably suggests it's not all that secret.
Right. And with us we have a guest. We have Nick. How are you doing, Nick?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Nick is on here to talk to us about some of his exploits, specifically at Bugman's this past weekend, where he brought out Grymwatch. And then the next day, we won't be talking about it today, but maybe down the line, he brought the Gits to the mini clash there. So more on that a little later in the episode. But in the meantime, we're going to do some community shout outs. So for ours, just look at our last episode. We we kind of tried to hit all the resources. It's as actually the recording dropped about 4 hours before recording this. We're getting out a little bit ahead of things. So it'll be just out a couple weeks by the time you've heard this. Nick, anything you wanted to shout out yourself?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out an awesome performance that a player had that you might know him from Discord as Ghouls Don't Gamer. Ghouls Don't Gamer is Martin, and he basically achieved the same results that I did, except he got unlucky and less glory differential, so he didn't get as much trophies and attention as I did, but he went undefeated on the Friday with Xandar Truth Seekers, which is something.
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
and then,
wow.
and then finished undefeated in the second day, dropping only one match, like exactly as I did with the Stalkers the second day. So even though I'm getting some of the spotlight, I'd like to give him a shout because it is as fantastic as I did.
Sure.
Definitely.
Probably more impressive.
Yeah,
Xandar's Truth Seekers. Oof.
That's not one you hear all that often. We'll have to ring his bell a little bit about that. Phil, I think we're going to skip what the heck is going on with you because you and I recorded just a few days ago. So
yeah, not a whole lot has changed since then.
We'll just jump right into it. Nick, would you give a quick rundown of what the events were that at Bugman's for folks who are not plugged in or not quite sure?
Sure.
And we'll
so
get into it.
Bugman's Clash is at this point a monthly event or a two times per month event that happens at Bugman's Pub, which is the pub at Warhammer World in Nottingham.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Payton is the host. Sometimes you see some of his posts on Facebook and stuff like that. It's a skirmish event, usually a 4-round skirmish event. This time was championship. It's usually a Rivals or Rivals Plus or how's that called. This time was championship, and we were about 40-ish players, maybe short of 40, because some players got delayed with their planes and other stuff that happens. It was also 32 degrees in Celsius because we
because you're civilized.
Yeah, I'm still alive, and also we talk the scientists. We don't use your wacky systems for measuring stuff. And they told me it was totally unexpected. For us, 32 degrees, it's April. And for the UK was totally unbearable. They told me that the train had to stop because the railroads were too hot for them to go.
Wow.
The steel was buckling on the tracks.
Yeah.
So you mentioned skirmish style. For folks who are not aware, that does mean best of one. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
All right. Perfect. All right. And you brought, what did you bring to the skirmish?
I brought the Grymwatch, which is a warband that I know, as Davey knows, because I played them all the pandemic, and the pandemic lasted quite a lot. since we moved to playing online mostly, I was brought into multiple team events, and I was the Grymwatch guy all the time because
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
perform pretty well, and I know them pretty well. And basically, they have like now doubled down on their objectives and surges and whatnot. So I wanted to bring them just like maybe like some sort of tribute to them because like I had so much fun with them for the last years and wanted to give them a shout and a ring of honor. So I'd love to make a run with them, but I didn't think they were solid enough to win. Not even the Bugman, especially the mini clash. So I was thinking about something else for the mini clash, but still wanted. I think the Bugman is like some sort of almost wacky fun event.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of players brought the same warband for the next day, some of them didn't, and I was one of them. So I'd rather have something that I know and I can have fun with, and it's a chilled night, right?
Yeah. Well,
if I lose a match at Bugman, I can have beer. If I lose the first match at the Clash, it's still like 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
Fair.
It's an interesting point because you kind of answered it for me. I was going to ask why Grymwatch and why now, and notably when I jumped onto our personal message history when I was going to reach out to you and see if you were around for a recording. I noticed our last exchange was I was asking you, hey, have you put anything? It was back in November. I was like, hey, have you put anything together for Grymwatch and Hero Deep yet? And you said, not really. I don't think they work that much.
Basically, I didn't run them at the beginning of the year because I was with stalkers. Because I think a lot of like good cards in general. We had like some really little cool cards at the beginning of the year in November.
Right.
Let's see, beginning of the season. I didn't went with them. Like after I lost a couple tournaments, I was like, the old Grymwatch deck that has like the Antimantis and Treasure Hunters and those stuff. Those kind of will work. And then I thought again and say, wait, those cards are still in. Like, why am I not trying to make them work?
Yeah.
And so I brought them to a tournament, and it still worked. Like I won that. That was another skirmish tournament I had like in Italy. 6 rounds, so pretty long one, and I won that. And I was like, they still work. And then this expansion came out. I didn't practice with them with this expansion. I just basically doubled down on the old 2 objectives on your territory and ever downwards and shifting madness is everywhere. So that was it. Basically, that was the deck. That was the same deck as before.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a couple things coming out, and these are useful for everybody. But Ever Downwards and Sudden Revelation kind of help it flow a little bit and give you more reason to do some of the things that you're already trying to do. I think it's probably a good time to run through the deck. So,
I want to make just a fair warning. I run True Wits with my decks because Zach Newcomb made me think about that. Because it's a powerful card. I use True Wits with my gifts all the time, and maybe we'll talk about it later. And I was because I made like some practice game with Compact, and Compact said, "Be sure that True Wits work with Barging Forward and Not Lost because those are not scatter abilities." And I was running with some other folks, and they say, "Well, of course it should work with those are scatter abilities." Otherwise, I said, "Yeah." Otherwise, like this card only works with First Mirror and nobody else. And he told me First Mirror and the Crack Marrow, and I would say, "Wait. I can make it work with Ghouls. It's pretty powerful." Matter of fact, I don't think they made me realize it after the tournament that it doesn't work with Krakmarow's ability because Krakmarow's ability, the Ghoul Call, makes you place a scatter token and roll 1 dice. Its wording is different than scatter 1.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty understandable. I kind of had the same arc as you where I saw it, I got excited about it, put it in, and then had somebody sort of talk me out of it, say, hey, the same sort of thing. Like it doesn't say scatter it, but it's totally reasonable that somebody would see it that way.
I think it's a wording problem more than like, I mean, as intended, I think it's a scatter ability because you place the scatter token, you roll 1. It's basically scatter 1, but it doesn't say scatter 1. So correctly, that shouldn't work. I used it only like twice in 4 games, so it wasn't like that much permanent as a play as was with Gets, which I use all the time. But still, that was not fair. So nobody noticed. And sorry to everyone that I won with it. It wasn't my fault. It was really another mistake.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
If we can just blame Zach Newcomb, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easy enough. Done.
So I'm looking at them here. I've got your surges as everything to prove, contest of equals, sudden revelation, reckless swing, horrors in the dark, and ever downwards. Ever downwards and sudden revelation are kind of obvious for this. They can flip. Did you ever score ever downwards off of crack marrow in enemy territory?
Once.
Okay.
Just once. Usually, I have plenty of guys to score it. Even if I usually run most of the guys on the other territory, but sometimes like those are occupied, like for the Sport Guard or other warbands that annoyingly try to hold my objectives. But sometimes, like Crack Marrow can teleport that with Beast Prey or some of that later, and eventually it can happen. Let's say it's like we gather momentum. Sometimes you can score it with the other surge. It's about.
Yep.
The Reckless Swing is a card for this warband that I didn't really think about until Requisite Zach was using it with his Spikeclaw Swarm, and it's like, look, I'm running onto objectives, and often you can kind of two birds with one stone, just take a nothing attack and get a guaranteed glory for it. And I was like, I guess that is kind of, because it's a surge that you can score with board positioning, but it doesn't really matter what the dice show. So
basically that's also in a previous version of this deck, I had Mighty Swing.
Oh, a Mighty Swinger.
That helped with that too. I took down Mighty Swing for confusion, which is something. But basically I do a lot of like charges onto objective like 2 Fury, or why not? Maybe I do a damage. And at this point, why not? Maybe I'll even score an objective for it.
Yeah, and then certainly in the first game of best of 3 or in best of 1, even like getting a lucky chip damage on somebody can kind of give their brain some problems as far as worrying about chum, even though you don't have it here. 2-year surges. Oh, I was about to say 2-year surges are restricted. That's not true because no, it is true. I was just looking at Sudden Revelation. It was about to be. You have contest to equals. And you have everything to prove. I'll come back to everything to prove in a second, but contest to equals, I think I kind of like it in here. I've done the same thing just because you're doing that sort of, I'm going to charge, try and score reckless swing. You're taking lots of swings yourself. And because you filled the whole board with your fighters, there's just a lot of attacks that typically happen in my experience.
Yeah, of course.
So
also a sneaky one, when my warband inspires, one critical of them, I can't remember the name, the one with the bones on the back, makes you throw one dice less.
The Knight's Herald, yeah.
The Knight's Herald, yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So usually when you roll like 2 dice instead of 3 or 1 because you didn't notice, it's a lot more easier to score.
Yeah.
Also, surges are like, I think the bigger problem from Grymwatch right now is having consistent surges, because their good surges are restricted and not that good right now.
Yeah. Right, that's a good point. There is no in the name of the king in here, because that is both restricted and a little bit difficult to set up these days.
Yeah, and shifting madness can be problematic since like sometimes you just know where 2 objectives are and you don't know the other 3, and you have to like spend an activation over them to score. So it's a guess.
Yeah. I've been sticking with in the name of the king. I think I've probably got it in the spot where you have everything to prove, and it is a thing that it's hard to set up. It definitely makes for playing differently, where I would delve and then just leave them open so that I could run back onto them. It kind of accepts a heavier loss. That
is true, but makes like making a statement harder to score.
That's true.
Yeah.
Instead of delving exactly the moment that you need it. Basically only before the end phase. That's basically it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it also sacrifices some modest defensive boosts. Now, I see you have everything to prove, and this unlocks primacy. It is your only primacy card in the deck.
It does.
And
it does.
So when I first saw it, I was like, I don't know. Like this is 1 glory, but the other person's gotten primacy. So is it really like helping you at all? But I think it gets you flowing. They get glory, but it's spent, so it doesn't get them. I mean, from the kill they do, and then you have enough damage boost. How often did you find that you got to the end of the round and did not? Do you sometimes maybe get one primacy to their two primacy scores, or how did that work out in practice for you?
Okay, basically, I think my go-to primacy score is 1. Like, it's an even glory objective for me because, like, I score everything to proof. I maybe score 1 primacy out of 3, and my opponent will get the other 2 primacy. So basically, it's 2 and 2. The biggest swing here is I need consistent surges because sometimes it's really important for them to inspire. And sometimes you just need 1 glory to bring Crystal Well to 4 damages and inspire and remove 1 threat.
Yep.
So basically, it's that first glory that matters more than it's 1 glory that you can score without other stuff. That is true. I think the problem is their surges, as I said, because I really need like a quick surge to have a crucial quick upgrade that makes a difference.
Yeah, I can see it. The end phases, you have Treasure Hunter and Extraordinary Revelation, which are basically the same card. They are 3 glory for holding 2 or more objectives in enemy territory. Yeah, and so that is pretty specific. And then that kind of couples with making a statement, which is to hold all objectives in enemy territory. Fearless Seekers, which is this finally is a 2 glory instead of a 3, but it's a score of 2 or more friendly fighters are on feature tokens in enemy territory. Dominant Position, which is an obvious pick for something like this, and then the Hunt advances because weirdly the Grymwatch have 5 hunters in their organ. And that's having 3 or more friendly fighters in enemy territory, and each friendly fighter in enemy territory is a hunter. We'll circle back around to the Extraordinary Revelation Treasure Hunter. I was when I was playing around with it a little bit, I started trying this some because there's a user Freeze had posted up a similar deck, but some because I'd watched so many games of you making a lot of work out of Treasure Hunter and such, and I was like, okay, these were in previous editions, but I was surprised how scoreable you made it, and how did you feel like doubling down on it was just fine? You have a glory ceiling of 21 with this deck right now.
Yeah, I think was reasonable, extremely reasonable, even more reasonable than before because like before there was like some sort of counterplay and people rely more on pushes and objectives. This time there's less focus on it. And also doubling down means like I can fully go on my strategy, and that leads my opponent to the crucial choice. Do I make him inspire or do I make him score less?
That's a good point.
Also, I have a 21 glory objective. I think it's our 22 or 23. Those are really like objectives. But I also know that I can discard like a 2 glory or 3 glories without a do.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I think the key piece that you mentioned there was setting up difficult choices, and I played around with saying like trying a supremacy and holding, trying to get 3 in my own territory, with Dark Inversion, and playing back and saying I'm just going to be in my territory. I'm going to hold as much as I can in my territory, and I'm going to try and kick the enemy out. But what it did was it didn't create any hard choices. The enemy could just come barreling in right at me and say, I'm going to try and disrupt your score, and I'm going to try and prevent your inspiration at the same time. And this is what I remember about watching you play before, is that by getting into enemy territory, you create an immediate threat of, okay, like if I take 1 less activation running into the Grymwatch's territory and instead turn around to try to knock this fighter off an objective, it increases the chance that they inspire. Is that a similar thing that you've been doing with this build? Is that kind of aggressive push, and then dare them to have to make the choice?
Oh, absolutely. The build is like that. Like, I'm going to make you choose between letting me inspire or letting me score less.
Mm-hmm.
Their resurrection mechanic makes that work too as well. Even though you have to practice a bit because sometimes you finish with like a critical on the back of your territory, and that's a game loss basically.
Yeah.
That's basically
Yeah.
game loss, and you don't realize. I have a lot of practice with those, and one fighter on the back, it's a game loss. I can assure you that. Basically, all your plan goes to wrap around, and yep, that's the game. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely bring more fighters possible.
Yeah. Are you? I think you're talking about here, like with the with setting up the scatter token to make sure that you have as much chance as possible of landing in enemy territory, because you're, as long as you get in enemy territory, you're helping the hunt advances and you're closer to those crucial objectives that you need. I think I've made a pretty grave error where I looked at I got greedy where I was like, well, let's see if I place a scatter token like so, there's one dice result which sends a fighter all the way back into my territory and he'll never get back out. But the two of them will set him up where I could confusion onto an objective or something, and that would be a big score. And of course, I rolled that one that sent him all the way back. I was like, well,
yeah. Sometimes like you have to gamble like that. I'd rather
yeah.
keep those instances for the end of the game. Like if
Yeah.
it's the end of the game and that changes a lot, I will gamble about it. But like the first or second resurrection you do in the game, you shouldn't. Like if it happens, fine. But the crucial part is it has to be on the side of the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm
so go ahead.
glad you mentioned the resurrection, because like looking at this deck initially, I was like, man, this seems like a really great strategy right now. But then I was thinking about it from the perspective of my stalkers, and it's like, I don't think I could ever try and do anything like this, because as soon as one or two skinks are dead, the whole strategy would fall apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like having that resurrection is absolutely crucial here, I think.
Yeah, it is.
I know we still have to go through the power cards, but I actually think this is a decent time to talk. When you are setting up at the start of the game, let's say you win the dice roll, is your preference to control the board alignment or to control the objective tokens, the feature tokens?
Funnily enough, I think both work for both warbands. I think it's a situation where it really doesn't matter because what I want is exactly what my opponent wants. So my opponent doesn't want to offset the board because what will make it easier for me to inspire, and so it goes straight. And I also don't want to like offset the board because I want to run faster and with a lot of people in their territory.
Yep.
And so I think basically I don't want to say it's the same, but I think it's basically the same. Probably with Moloch, I'd like to place the boards more than not because like their objective control is suboptimal. Instead of like on Sepulchre Guard, I'd rather set up the board to go straight, to be sure it's straight and aggro. But yeah, I guess basically it doesn't matter. Let's say in a generic matchup, I'll take the boards, and usually I end up with 2 or 3 objectives in their side anyway.
And specifically because of, so I had given myself, my version had In the Name of the King still in there, and it would tempt me into putting 3 objectives. If I had control of it, I'd put 3 features in my territory to make that easier and dominant easier. But what I think I'm hearing and what I was discovering is that actually I think I kind of want the 3 in enemy territory with, because it gives more options. Because what I was finding is like, there's only 2 out there. It gives me less chances to find a way to solve the Extraordinary Revelation or Treasure Hunter puzzle. So you would go for you kind of grow aggressively to get the 3. Is that 3 features in their territory any way you can do it, or do you try to? Are there any other placement tricks that you like to try and engage with?
So usually when they take objective, they usually place their first in their territory anyway. So that solves also my problem. I try to have like one of them that is easily reachable with a couple of cryptos. That's my basically the most important thing. The other feature token can be a cover X, which I can place pretty much everywhere. Mm-hmm. So Horrors in the Dark is covered like that, Field of Seeker is covered like that, and I can work from there on. So usually I make sure there are one of those, it's an objective token and ritual from 2 quick goals, which I deploy in the front. Mm-hmm. The rest basically is bonus. Against Phil Kelly, that was playing with Sparkle Guard, we ended up like with 4 objectives in each side of the territory.
Whoa, all right.
Interesting.
And 2 cover X's. Only 1 objective was in my side of the territory.
Wow, all right.
And he placed it like for last. And he had like a chance to place his, even that, like in no man's land on his territory, and he said, nah, probably it's better if I put it there.
Have you ever been able to, with some board setups, I guess I've managed a couple times to engineer a edge hex placement. It's usually where somebody has longboarded me, or an offset where there's more.
One thing that I meant to tell, I forgot. A longboard is death to this board. You should never longboard this board if you're running Grymwatch, because the resurrection mechanic it's a mess. You cannot win. It goes everywhere. You don't have control of it.
So yeah, it's
probably if you want to counter Grymwatch, try longboard.
That's I had a couple of games against Storma Celestis, which I thought was gonna be great, and he longboarded me both times, and they were really, really hard. Because specifically because of that. Although the one thing that did happen was I managed to get an objective on an edge hex, which gave me, which is good for Beast Trail at least. But that was about the only silver lining of that. Are there any particular boards that are your kind of go-to boards that you?
So I was in a skirmish event, and I practiced the deck before a skirmish event. So I always use only one board. That's always my go-to board. That's the one with 3 blocked axes in a pyramid scheme, like in a triangle scheme.
Yeah, this
that's
is
because every way you put it, you rotate it. There are at least 2 edge axes in the back. They're all with 3 good spots for the crypt tool on the front. There's usually some good mix of blocked axes and occupied axes to reach crack matter earlier. So that's a great board. Use that.
All right.
Soul Refractor, I think, is the name, right?
I don't know.
For all those
I can't remember the name of my fighters.
Fair. The one who's wearing a skull on his head. I don't know.
Yeah, that one. I use this board, man. I
swear. So let's get back into the deck. We're talking about the power cards now. So I'm gonna run through. It's heavy on the pushes, which is always a good thing. For the pushes, there's Pack Advance, which what a beautiful push. This is the choose one or more friendly crypt ghouls and push each of them 2. So you can push 3 fighters 2 if they're all sitting on the board. Appalling Visage, which is an enemy push. It pushes somebody 2 hexes away from you. This is the card I'm always terrified of the Grymwatch player having in their hand and denying keeping me from stopping the Inspire. Heated Instinct, Hypnotic Buzz, Sidestep. These are all pushes that you have in there, and then there's a couple of equivalents. But you landed on these pushes. I noticed that Cover of Darkness is not in there. That's a push 2. Tell me more about that.
If I didn't run through it, I would have run Darkening Storm, and instead of Sidestep, I would have put Cover of Darkness. The problem with Cover of Darkness is that if you delve an objective and they push you off of it, you cannot go back with Cover of Darkness.
Yeah,
and I usually don't need like Cover of Darkness to reach an objective that I cannot reach, because I have like already 2 push 2 cards, which are Heated Instinct and Pack Advance, which are plenty to me. So I'd rather have like the 3 of a Sidestep. If I run Cover of Darkness, then I will take. If I run Darkening Stone instead of Through It, which I should have, then I would have run Cover of Darkness instead of Sidestep, because you can, I think, go back over an object. I guess that's the ruling I would run with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
If we'll
Yeah.
be confirmed or not.
There's two sort of equivalent, well, not equivalent, but there's two manipulate. Well, I should say there's Dark Sacrifice in here, which is a good one for this format because you're going to lose people. It gets you to more pushes when it happens, and it feels really good. This is if somebody kills somebody and you Dark Sacrifice into Strident Summons, like,
yeah,
all right, just got easier.
Rough stuff.
And Strident Summons being the out of phase as a power step resurrect.
It's also pretty good for like the advances because you can sneakily put back one in, and it's also really good like when you charge with a threat like the critical that you packed with upgrades, and they take it back and say, okay, this guy's not coming back because Quagmire charged, so this round I'm saying, no, it's right back.
Yes. Then there's two. There is Confusion, which you talked about a relatively late inclusion in there in place of Mighty Swing, and then Swarming Darkness. And this is Swarming Darkness is one we've talked about a couple of times now, but this is choose pick one feature token within 3 hexes. If it's an objective, flip it. If it's not, push it one towards that fighter. Was Swarming Darkness in the whole time, or was that something you kind of came to, or how did that?
So Swarming Darkness was the last card that made the deck. I saw how powerful that was for the gifts. Basically, that was my gift card, and I saw how gift card alone made infestation like extremely possible. And I was running Making a Statement, and this makes Making a Statement like 3 times as possible as before. And also, like, I have a lot of guys in my opponent's territory, so usually I have for sure one fighter within 3 axes of one of their pieces.
I was using it myself, and I again against in this Storm of Celestis game, because those guys like they enjoy sitting on objectives themselves, and he was delving really early, and so I couldn't use this for the way that I is the kind of juiciest way to use it often, which is to pull an objective or pull a feature token out from under somebody and then put it under yours.
You know that I like the other version better.
The flip to turn it back.
Yeah, because sometimes like people like to stay like on top of a cover X and say, so I cannot deny you're Making a Statement or your infestation with it. And so at the end phase, they say, okay, now I delve, so you don't score. And I say, no, I flip it back, and you cannot delve again.
I agree. In this case, this was a player who was running, it was Storm, so he was delving real early in the round, and then I was stuck where I couldn't. If I use this, I would just flip it, but he would just delve it back again. So it was a problem. But what I realized is like if in that rare case where you have that in the matchup, you can still use it, on your own side because you probably want to hold something on your own or use it early before they get to squat on them. So I realized it was I was like, oh, this card isn't as good as I thought, and I'm like, no, it's just that I didn't adapt. I didn't adapt at all. I thought of the one or two ways to use it, and then there's more than just that. So yeah, I like it. Did you ever think about Darken? Oh, go ahead.
I was saying an edge case for using that is scoring Sudden Revelation.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Because Sudden Revelation tell you to flip, ever downwards tell you to delve. So you can like flip an objective and flip it back and score it with just one.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, I actually do that a fair amount with the skinks, having multiple ways to flip in my power deck. So it's just like I don't even need to necessarily have fighters on everything all the time. I can still get the flips that I need. Swarming Darkness feels like a super utility card right now. So for folks who aren't using it, give it a try.
Never leave the house without.
Did you ever consider Dark Inversion in this deck? Or did it ever become a problem if somebody else had it and you didn't?
No, because as I said, usually there's plenty of stuff that I can sit in my opponent's territory, and usually that they need like one objective, and if they want to bring another objective into the equation, hey, be my guest, I guess.
Yeah, it gives you more chances too.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about the gambits, or should we hop over onto the upgrades?
I think confusion is an interesting choice, and I lost a game because my opponent had confusion and I hadn't, and basically he was able to score making a statement and I wasn't, and so I dropped Mighty Swing for this card, and this card makes a lot of stuff possible because sometimes like your opponent is going to stand on an objective and be obnoxious about it to not making you scoring a statement. You don't have counters for confusion because usually it requires 2 cards to revert to the previous state for confusion. And in the meta where not a lot of people run confusion is extremely powerful.
Yeah, it's been a very solid card ever since season 1, and I think that people sometimes forget about how powerful it is to just be able to switch places on you.
Yeah, I remember.
Also, on some edge cases, I can use it to inspire.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think Phil and I had a match where I did that. I needed bad. 2 cards because Hrothgorn had gotten pretty deep in my territory, but I was able to kind of confusion onto the feature token that he was standing on, and then horrifying or appalling visage to throw him out of my territory and then inspire. So.
Oh, both of those. I usually run like when people put like a fighter on the X after no one's territory, I'd like to charge in no one's territory. Maybe target the other fighter and then confuse and push another away.
Yeah. It's a good one. Well, let's talk those upgrades. So the Grymwatch have some tremendous ones.
Absolutely.
Just built in. So you're pretty much always going to see well motivated and heroic vision. Those are +1 damage for range 1 and 2, and +1 dice as well. And then this one you have impervious delusion. This is if the fighter would be dealt more than 2 damage by an attack action or a gambit, they are instead dealt 2 damage, and it cannot be further modified. I feel like that's kind of a set of 3 auto selection for you. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, I think those are always going to my Grymwatch deck, no matter what strategy I'm running to. Those 3 are like must have.
Yeah.
I mean, if those 3 objectives upgrades were universal, I think everyone would take them all the time.
Yeah.
I think I had for a little while talked myself out of impervious delusion only because I was getting. I think I kept on losing Crypt Ghouls, so it doesn't help, and then Crack Marrow was getting killed by 2 damage and a 2 damage. But I think having this on can just make sure that you just guarantee that there's no one shot on Gristlewell or Crack Marrow or and anyone with more than 2 wounds, which is
also like having it on Varric sometimes like it's a huge swing because sometimes like she's standing on an objective and she cannot be killed. So is it worth it? Probably not. So I'll keep her there and then I score my stuff.
Yeah.
Also, like an extremely edge case, I can use it on another of my crit goals, but I will tell you the name right now because I have my fighter cards here. It is Master Talon, because when he fires and kills another fighter, he can use his reaction to add +1 wound. So now it's 3.
Yeah, I finally triggered that ability and remembered to use it, which was incredible.
Yeah, it's like the gas from Tandric. Nobody uses it because nobody remembers.
Yeah. Let's see what else. There's Savage Strength, Great Strength, and then we'll throw Berserker Rage into this conversation as well. That's combined with well motivated means you have 4 damage boosts, and that's not even counting the weapons, which will boost the ghouls. We'll get to those in a second.
Savage Strength is also the added benefit of making one fighter a hunter.
Yes.
So I can use it to Gristlewell or the Harriers to make them hunter and score the advances.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid.
I've gotten myself jammed up in that way where like, oh man, I really want to make this charge with Gristlewell, but it's going to mess up the hunt advances. And you're like, oh, all right. Another way of doing that is this obviously doesn't work with Harriers, and you'd rather put it on a Crypt Ghoul. But when I've been really up against it, I've occasionally thrown Soul Tooth on Gristlewell if I didn't have any other way forward to crack the code. The two weapons you picked were Soul Tooth Dagger and Silent Sword. Were there any other weapons you considered, like Shadow Spear or anything like that?
The other weapon I considered was a Seize Weapon for them because the pink damage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because sometimes, like in an Alliance version of this deck, I killed Daintalos in an end phase because
so rough.
Yeah, sometimes it can happen. Those are the two weapons that give me basically 3 damages. That's usually more than needed, even because sometimes I have, like, as you can see, a lot of +1 damage in other ways. And that's the way. Also, Silent Sword gets 3 damages in no one's territory, which is pretty crucial to me for inspiration. And Soul Tooth Dagger, it's another thing that makes you a hunter. So.
Yep.
Oh, this is a good point because a lot of times that second fighter getting into your territory is just over the line. So because they're coming from further back, so that Silent Sword, you're saying you can charge into no one's territory and then swing back into your own territory to chop an interloper out. I guess Soul Tooth pairs kind of nicely with Berserker Rage too, going up to 4 Fury, 3 damage with Grievous, and possibly a reroll. Really is a nice combo too.
Yeah.
I see the one sort of outlier is Driven by Envy, and this is the +1 move. Fighters attack actions have +1 dice and cleave if they target a leader.
This card is so good. Everybody is surprised by it. I don't know why people overlook this card.
Yeah.
Like Great Speed is a great card.
Yeah.
This is Great Speed and +1 dice and cleave against a leader.
Yeah. I've every deck I have included it in, I've been like, oh, this is actually pretty good, and then I somehow continue to overlook it in other decks. But often because that you're going into enemy territory anyway with this, and you are going to have to deal with the opposing leader. So
also +1 move is good. Overlook speed.
Extra speed is always strong, and then extra speed is especially useful when you need to be in enemy territory. I don't know how many times I've been like, all right, I'm speed 4, I know I can get there, and then I'm like, it's 5 hexes. Great. Extra speed, always useful. I think people just overlook +1 move instead of +2, because there was, a while there where I was like, oh, well.
Yeah, I think it was also fair to overlook stuff because sometimes when you think about like charges you can make, you think just at the charges you can make because of your speed.
Yep.
And you never think about, if I have 1 more speed, I can make all these other charges. You don't think like that. So it's easier to overlook that. But if you really consider, like, +1 move can make a lot of more targets possible. And a target that is not possible will take 0 damages. So no matter how good your dice are rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. Best defense is not being able to be attacked.
Yeah.
And I guess I haven't tested it much, but I feel like in the current meta, there's a lot of warbands that care about their leaders a decent amount. And so that little bonus against a leader can probably come in pretty handy when you need to make a dive on an enemy leader.
Well, hello, Daintalos.
Yeah.
Speaking of.
+1 dice and cleave against Daintalos?
Yeah.
I'll take it twice.
Pretty solid.
The last thing to mention about the deck that I wanted to point out is I actually accidentally skipped over one game, but that was Beast Trail, and that was it's hidden paths, but if only for hunters or quarries, where you can pick, if you don't have a move or charge, you can pick up from an edge hex and place on another edge hex and get a move. And I imagine this is in here for just sneaking more people into enemy territory by and large.
if this card was restricted to Crack Marrow, I would put it in my deck. Basically, just for Crack Marrow. I usually take Crack Marrow in the back, and once my Crypt are there, and I have this card, I think I'm fine if he dies at some point, so I can bring it in. Also, this made like the game against Phil Kelly an extremely pleasant and interesting game, because at the end of like the second activation, I had one glory. He had like a couple. I had Beast Trail. He had his leader. He was using the board with 3 consecutive block taxes, and he had his leader right next to one of his small skeletons, one of his petitioners. So I could have teleport myself right next to him. I have Heroic Vision for +1 dice, and I could have like 3 hammers attacks against a 1 dodge trap rider. So I was pretty sure he was going to die. I did, and at the beginning of the second round, he won the roll off and killed Crack Marrow. I was like, okay, now this is an interesting game.
I do like it on Crack Marrow because it gets one more fighter, and then with his range too, he can kind of drop in and often create some tough choices for people. So
Hidden Paths was an absolute monster of a card for a while there, and Beast Trail is basically the same. It's just a little more limited, so it's not everybody gets to use it, but still super powerful. But I think people don't think about it as much anymore. So you probably have a little bit of a surprise factor, although I think people might expect it with Grymwatch.
Yeah, and also remember, Savage Strength, also Dagger makes you a hunter. So in extreme cases, you need to like bring somebody out of a situation. You can use that.
Well, all right. Before the day, were there any matchups that you're like, this one's particularly bad for me? This one I really don't want to see.
I was pretty even against zombies, because sometimes like they can kill all 3 of your crystals in one activation, and that makes a lot of my stuff harder to score, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, Ripa is always problematic.
Yeah.
Also, Shadeborn. Shadeborn are problematic because they like need 2 cards and they can one-shot Crack Marrow no matter where he is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have Impervious Delusion in your hand, sometimes you do not. So yeah, that was my problematic 3 matches. I think I faced none of them. So also, Mirror is not that great. I faced a Mirror, but it wasn't like such a skilled player or experienced player with the Warband, so I could take advantage of
that. So on the day of, you had it was four games on the way through?
Yeah, exactly.
Who did you have in round 1?
So in round 1, I had Draper. There was a fine lad running it. I can't remember name, sorry. Was a fine lad. He was like a somewhat returning player, like it stopped at Nightbolt and went back. And he also has like a run that tried to score basically the same stuff, like Treasure Hunter, making a statement kind of deck. And I had more pushing than him.
Yep.
So basically, I won because of that. Basically, he told me I keep denying his end phases all the time while I score mine.
Yes.
And I won by 6. Was a close game, by the way, because Draper is so accurate, and I inspire all of them because I have to do my stuff. Yeah. Also, I inspire all his warband like in the first activation I did because I have to be in his territory.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
I mean, I thought about it. I say, you know what, you're going to be expired no matter what, so I'd rather give it to you.
Yeah. No denying Drippers.
They have become a lot more manageable with the modification to their push.
Yes.
Okay, so start out 1-0. What's your next matchup that you face?
Next matchup, I guess, was the Grymwatch Mirror. And I vividly remember, like, my opponent said, what warband you don't want to face? I can say, I don't want to face a mirror. A mirror against an Italian player that I usually play all the time. So not only a guy I don't want to face, but also a warband I don't want to face. So yeah, that happened. Also, as I said, like, I have a lot more experience with the warband instead of the guy. and he told me it was like the fifth time he was playing the Warband. Like, yeah, so 5 game precedence to this. And basically, what was the game when I'm inspired and it's not, I'm over objective and it's not, and I score glory and it's not. Basically, was pretty one-sided game. And I don't blame it. Like, mirror for Grymwatch is something you have to learn because you're gonna be like surprised a lot if you don't set it correctly.
Sure. I think that's true for anybody. Like, I think many people are pretty inexperienced in playing the mirror, just because, for understandable reasons, it's often not something you play in practice.
Right.
You know, but you know, for me, I ended up by a quirk of some of our online things, I ended up playing the Rippa mirror a bunch of times, and so it's one of the few mirrors that I feel comfortable in because I'm like I've probably played the Rippa mirror, you know, on the higher end of the number of people who've done it, and it's just like anything else. It's understanding. You think like, well, I already know this warband, but understanding the mirror is more than just understanding the warband. So
yeah, and also like he was running a, let's say, more classical version of the Grymwatch, and I think my version makes an advantage for me because I'm going to be in your territory, so you're not going to inspire, and the objectives are on your side of the territory, so you're not going to in my territory, so I will inspire.
Yeah, and then early on, when everybody's accuracy and damage is low, it's still pretty safe to go running into their territory with your own ghouls. You know, you'll take some hits, but not that many.
Yeah, and that difference is pretty huge. Like, I defend with 2, and you defend with 1. I roll 1 more dice than you. It's like a pretty big of a difference.
Yeah. And then I think another quirk of doing this sort of matchup where you are you're these sort of swarm hold objective versus swarm hold objective is that in an event like this, which where glory differential is going to be important, if one side is scoring theirs, it usually means the other side is not scoring theirs. You know, so if you're so you can really open up a large glory differential in this sort of matchup.
Yeah, I think I won by 20 this matchup.
Oh,
I think this was like the edge for me to winning the event.
Sure.
Wow.
And that early on. The so you advance past that. What does your round 3 opponent look like?
My round 3 opponent is Mario, the guy that won the Grand Clash the day after. He was running Moloch, which I knew later, like, he was not that experienced with Moloch, so he was basically doing like the Bugman as a fun event like this.
Sure.
And I have to tank my dice. I actually have to tank his dice for it because he missed a couple of brutal attacks that should have entered, and they didn't. Especially honorable mention, Mog with 3 hammers for 5 damages, because if you play the card where a fighter holds an objective, he gets 1 damage, a charge token, and he has +1/+1 for the entire game.
Yeah. Drawing power. That's a good.
Pretty good on Moloch, by the way.
Yeah.
He rolled 3 hammers against a trapped Crack Marrow and rolled no successes.
Oh my gosh.
No.
And my next card was Beast Trail.
You're just gonna yeet on out of there.
Just like that, I'm gone. Yeah.
And that happened. I'm not sure if I lost because he landed the attack, but for sure I don't win that easily.
For sure.
So I think it's fair to remember all the times where your dice don't go. I think you should always remember when the dice kiss you, and that's one of the times.
What did he put Stalag Squeak in your territory to help with stopping the Inspire? Or?
No, he put Stalag Squeak in his territory over an objective. And also, at some point, I tried to play sidestep, but mistakenly dropped down Confusion. I say, oh no, that's not the card. And immediately I saw his look, go to the Stalag Squeak and the Crypt Group next to him and say, yep, that is going to happen soon.
This is a thing that is going to happen.
Yeah, that is going to happen.
What do you think about that play? Do you think the better play is Stalag Squeak on an objective in your territory, or do you think he played it right to try and cover up something in his?
I played against Mike like a billion times, and Mike ran Moloch like 99 million times out of the billion. He always put Stalag Squeak on an objective in my territory, which I think is the best choice for it. But also that wouldn't like denied my objectives at all,
Yeah,
even though he didn't know my objective.
Yeah.
Also, another interesting stuff, he was playing the illusion when, at the end of the phase, you are teleported back in your territory.
Oh.
And we also asked Nick, because we weren't sure about that for the inspiration. And Nick Payton ruled that happens before the inspiration step, so you inspire after that. So no matter what, it wouldn't have been able to stop my inspiration because it was running that kind of deck.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes the decision for him then. So, toppling Mollog. It's a feat. Actually, I haven't seen Mollog for a while. Jazz in our local still runs them, and so does who else? Was
Cameron.
it Cam?
I've actually just faced him just the other day. We didn't actually get to quite finish the game, but it was close.
Okay.
It was Hrothgren against Mollog.
Just haymakers going back and forth. Nick, I think we remember you are going against Sepulchral Guard in the final. Then is that right? Or not the final, but your final game. Yeah.
And actually, Phil Kelly was the guy with most glory differential at the moment where we playing. We were at table 1. So basically, if it happened to swing, whoever won took the game. I think the game against Phil Kelly was easily one of the favorite games I have in this game since I started playing. Both play and spectating was just that interesting of a game. He ran Sepulchral Guard pretty awesomely. He also had everything to prove and underdog, so I think both supremacy were in play. As I said, we lost both of our leaders at end of first round, beginning of the second.
Oh wow!
We exchanged supremacy 20 times during the game because every kill was a one shot. Interestingly enough, at the end of the first round, I was in the position where I could score my objective or I could inspire, and he chose to not let me inspire and score. And also, another pretty huge event was when his leader was dead, right? And his sighting guide, the
Harvester.
The Harvester. Why? I don't remember names today. The Harvester was sitting on an objective next to my Crypt Ghoul and Crystal Well. And I say, okay, so you have just one card to bring him back. So if I take him down now, he eventually going to come back and inspire, which is something you don't want to see. But it's also not probable that it happens right away. So I killed that guy. And of course he has restless death, so he's back. Yeah. And it buffed. It put Berserker Rage. It put Inspire Attack. It put
no.
And he rolled 5 dice against Crack Marrow and doesn't roll single success.
Wow.
You hate to see it.
Yeah, and then killed my Crypt Ghoul, and the activation later, Crack Marrow goes charging the Prince of Doubt that was the other fighter that did not let me inspire. One shot in, I inspire, and the game basically rolls. He runs out of steam after that.
Yeah. It's funny because you're talking about do I want to give him the chance to inspire early? And I was like, and I'm trying to think. I was like, I guess he gets a little more accurate, but I totally forgot about Inspiration Strikes being a possibility. That is stacking it on there. That's cool. That does sound awesome.
Inspired Attack, sorry, not Inspiration Strike, but in the card.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Inspired Attack. Just old traumas resurfacing. So when all was said and done, were there any? We've kind of talked about your deck some, about any changes you'd want to do after the fact, or any changes that you might do if you're bringing this to a best of 3. Do you think you would have legs in a championship best of 3 format, or is this better suited for that?
No, I think this deck basically was probably more for a best of 3 than a best of 1, even though a best of 1 can surprise a lot of people because they don't maybe expect that I'm that much into being on their side of the board. So that can surprise stuff. But yeah, I run cool best of 3 basically all the past 2 years. And Davey knows it. So I think best of 3 is doable. The only change I will make is True Wit because, as I told you, I know that doesn't work. And so I probably go back to Darkening Stone and Core Darkness, or I take Sidestep and put some of that in it.
Soundless step.
Yes, yeah. Always a few extra pushes always helps.
Yeah, I like that in a number of ways, and that it's one of those that it's rare to not find a way that it is helpful somehow. Attack somebody, push them off, and then step back onto it, or all that sort of thing. So, cool. You went with Gits. We won't break that down, but tell me why Gits for the next day.
So basically, I prepare for the event with Gits because one of my local guys was playing the Exile Dad, and they are a mess, and you can get crushed by them really badly. So I built a deck that can face them because I thought I would face like plenty of them. I also won the last UK tournament with them, so I was figuring, probably everyone is going to run that. I only faced one of them, so not that of a deal. But Gits are pretty much a bad matchup for the Exile Dad because I can occupy all the cover X's as soon as I deploy my fighters because Squeaks can go over there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the Merc is a menace, and they don't hold objectives, so dominant position is something they do. They also want to be on cover X's for their objectives, so infestation is really possible against them. So basically I went with them and tried like a lot of matchups with them, and I thought they were pretty solid. Basically, when I lose bad. Like I lose by a lot. But they're usually pretty solid and they can outscore pretty much everyone. So I decided to bring them. I had a lot of second thoughts because once you win an event with the goal, you're going to say, why am I not bringing this weapon again? Why am I switching? This is working. Why am I changing the card? But my friends talked me into it. They say, no, they did their stuff. You prepare for Gits. Gits deck is good. Run with the Gits. And I did. And I'm extremely happy I did. So no second thought.
For folks who want to see some Gits in action, I think they have made it to the Vassal Brawl final, unless I'm mistaken. Let me see.
That sounds right.
I mean, I think Galver is running Gits since like 1998. Before Underworld.
Oh no, I'm wrong. So it looks like the finals are Benny with Mournflight and Jazz K83 with Starblood Stalkers. But point being, there were two Gits players that went into the brawl, and they will be working on coverage of that once everything is done. They'll have some recorded games, and if you want to check those out, you should pop over to the Vassal Discord, and you'll find links for those once they're created. By the time you hear this episode, those will probably exist. They do not yet because the tournament is not yet done.
Yeah.
That's it. Anybody Phil, you got any other questions to hit about the Grymwatch here?
I don't think so. I really like the deck. I had not thought about doing all the Treasure Hunter Extraordinary Revelation stuff, but I like it. Solid.
Yeah. This is Nick's technique, is to create those hard decisions. We've talked about that a few times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The inspired condition and the resurrection makes it possible, basically.
Yeah.
That's the core idea of the deck.
Yeah. We are going to wrap it up here. Nick, you got any last things you want to kind of mention here?
I did a shout out. Folks, go to a Gun Clash if you manage, because it's awesome. Like, the event was run perfectly. Every single one opponent I faced was no less than exceptional, and I had a ton of fun. So if you can arrange the way to go to an event like that, go for it.
Okay,
for sure.
Before we get into the final here, I'm gonna bump this segment up a little bit. This is Phil's new favorite segment, and that is the flavor text quiz. So I'm gonna read off a flavor text, and you got to try and tell me what card I'm mentioning. This one is by Duke Crackmarrow. The translation: "Forwards, my noble warriors."
This one is the pack advance.
Yeah, you got it. There you go.
The English helped me a little bit there.
I should have just left it without untranslated. If you want to get in touch with us, you can catch us at WTHcast or whattheheckscast@gmail.com. Nick, if people wanted to hit you up, would they just track you down on Discord, or is there somewhere else they should track you?
Basically, yeah, on Discord for this game, it's at Nick Ramon and a bunch of numbers I don't remember, but I'm basically in all the Underworld's Discord, and you can find me there.
Yep. You can check out more of our content at themortalrealms.com. I just helped record a story phase about the Sylvaneth, which makes this, I think, my third recording in 4 days, which is maybe a personal record for me. Anyway, coming up, we are going to try and catch the winner, whoever it may be, of the Vassal Brawl and talk to them and maybe pull in some of the organizers there to talk about that, because it's really cool. I've caught a couple of the games live, and you get to hear the commentary, and that really kind of adds something to have that level. I think Shuby and a couple other Discord members have been handling some of the commentating, and that makes it pretty fun. Your recommended listening for this episode is Ghouls Night Out by the Misfits, and that's going to do it. So for What the Heck's, I've been Davey.
This is Phil.
Okay, so we were just... Oh yeah, my waveform is spectacular all of a sudden.